Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's running late today. First of all, if you don't mind coming to church, talking. It's all good. No. Still on? The reason I'm saying that is, I said it's not on. I've got a couple of people that ask me to slow down. Is it on yet? Somebody's going to be mad. You're going to be standing over here. That's going to be hard for you to stand over here and talk. As you guys all know, I like to move around. Is this one work? Is this one working? All right, I better stay right here. Now, is that this one or is that the one there? I'm totally confused. Go ahead and say it out loud. Let's take it. Go ahead.
Pulpit.
This one's working? The other one's not. Okay. Now you guys want to hold me to this. Well, I tell you what, this will be interesting right here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about today. So I get up today, I'm on my way here, and I don't know what happened. I have no clue. I just know that when I got my car, I looked down at the clock and I said, I'm running a little bit late. And I don't really know what happened with regards to, I didn't get up any later than what I did. I tried to think in my mind what I might have done. I don't know. All I know is that, I sinned coming up here because I broke the speed limit. And it wasn't one of those little sins. So, as I was doing that, then of course, you know how it is. Anytime you're in a hurry to get somewhere, you want to go, somebody decides that, the color of the trees when they're green is something interesting at times. And they want to drive slow. So as I'm coming up on them, I begin to get a little aggravated, but I preach a lot to people that, about God's providence. And I talk to young people a lot about, when that happens to you, you need to understand that God's trying to do something. That if you were on time, if you're going to believe in God's story and everything about God's story is perfect, then maybe if I was on time, then I would have been in a car wreck 2 miles ahead. So, if I'm going to preach that to young people, then I need to do that. So I slow down. And I just say, I'm late, I'm late. Well, they got a little nervous here when I was here, but to come to find out is that, God works all the details out. I was late. The reason I was late was the donuts were late. That conclusion. See, it always works out. So let's all right. So if you remember the last time we were here, there are a lot of people here that weren't here. So I'm going to give kind of a recap of what we talked about. We talked about the last time we talked about Moses. And if you remember that I talked to you about pictures and that picture of the senior picture that's in the middle, and then some people have those kindergarten, first, second grade pictures all the way around, and there's that senior picture. So you kind of get an idea of how that senior grew up and talked about that a little bit. Then we talked about Moses, different pictures of Moses throughout his life. And the first picture that we talked about, kind of review everybody, was the picture of Moses in the basket. And Moses, I'm going to kind of remind everybody or bring up the people that weren't here. If you remember, when he was born as a child, there was an edict that came down from Pharaoh. And he was going to kill all the boys that were born. Didn't like the way things were going, and he was going to kill all the boys that were born. And then this couple had this boy, and they liked him. So we're going to keep him. We're not going to drown him. We're going to keep him. So they hid him. They hid him in the cupboards. They hid him in this basket. If you remember, they stuck him in this basket. They stuck him out in the bulrushes one day. His sister was out there in the water, and the basket was in the water, kind of getting those tall weeds. Pharaoh's daughter came down. The entourage of people that she had with came down and found the basket, opened it up, found Moses inside that basket. If you remember that. If you were here, you will remember that. And decided she wanted to keep him. So she kept him. And the daughter that was down there, was the sister of Moses, said, you know what, hey, I bet I can go out, I bet I can find somebody to nurse him. You're no man, can I find somebody? So what she did, she ran home and got his literal mother to come back into Pharaoh's camp, into the temple there, into where he was living. Got to stay with him as a young child, and nursed him all the way up till he was old enough to live in the temple by himself. And then he grew up in the temple. And I remember saying this, and I want to say this again because I think you guys need to understand this. I think you really need to take this to heart. God takes care of a lot of details. He takes care of everything. If I told you that story, you wouldn't believe it. He is so good about that. You need to quit laying on bed at night worrying about what's going to happen the next morning. Tossing and turning, worried about things like that. You can't sit there and worry about things that are going to happen 2 weeks from now. And I've learned to do that. God has put today in front of you. That's all He has done is put today in front of you. And I'm telling you, you will learn to enjoy life so much more if you are just grateful for that day that He has put in front of you and not worried about that. And I believe that's one of the pictures. The next picture that we talked about was when he grew up. He grew up in the temple with the Egyptians. He had everything. Everything he wanted. I mean, there was the Egyptians and there was the Israelites, and he actually was part of the Israelite family. But he grew up in the temple, remember? And he had everything. He had the greatest of iPhones. He had all the greatest computers you can imagine. PlayStation 4s were hooked up to the big screen TVs. He had everything. I mean, everything that he wanted was in that. The greatest of food. Anything that he wanted. And he was probably going to be in control of Egypt. I mean, he was going to be the head guy, and I think about that, and I bet he worried about things. He said, you know, but if I stay here in this temple, if I stay here, maybe I can change things when I get to be under control. But he couldn't do it. He just couldn't do that. His people were not there. And I talked to you about last week about the idea that he had to make a choice in his life. And this is, we're going to have to talk about this again. I mean, you got choices to make. Let me explain this to you. That over here on one side is what he knew, or his people, and his beliefs of God, and the things that he knew about, and the things that he had been taught. And then over here were all of the things that he could see. The great house, all of the PlayStations, the new cars. He had the finest of chariots. He wanted for nothing over here. And he had to make a decision whether he was going to stay there with all of those things, or whether he was going to come over here and live on this side, where there was just nothing to be seen. When you looked at it, nothing that he could see. And he chose the invisible over what he could see. That's the hardest thing for me to do. I struggle with that all the time. Paul said that in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. He talked about being able to believe in the unseen. And I got a picture of that this weekend. I want to tell you about that. The last weekend, I work a lot of Emmaus walks. Some of you may know what that is. It's kind of like a church retreat. I got to work with a lot of young boys. I've worked them for young girls. I've worked them for older women. I've worked them for men. It's a great experience. If you ever get a chance to go, you should go. But I got to work with one of my sons. Now, I can tell you something. He can win a lot of championships. He can win a lot of trophies. He can do a lot of things in his life. But there'll never be a day that I was proud of the way that he changed his life. And there's not anything. There's not one thing that this world could offer me that I would give that up for. And that's how I finally figured out what Moses did. He said he gave up all of those things that he could see for something that he couldn't see. And I finally figured that out because it happened to me. So we moved down the road, and all of a sudden he wanted to let his people go, and so I wrote some things down about what the people did. We're going to the new thing. This is the new sermon. I'm not going to be long. I've only got about 10 more minutes. So. I want you to hear some of the things that took place. I wrote these down after I studied through about three different kinds of Bibles. And so the first thing that happened, he told the Pharaoh, he said, I want you to let the people go. I want you to let the Israelites go. They don't want to eat here. We want to go off on our own, and that's what's going to happen. And he said, Darrell said, no, it's just not going to happen. We're not letting them go, period. They're staying here. They're our slaves, and that's the way it's going to be. Moses looked at him and he said, well, that's fine. God came to him and he told him, he said, I'm going to tell you something, Pharaoh. There's going to be a plague of blood come upon you. And he raised his staff up, and the Nile River turned into blood. The blood got so bad that all the fish died and the whole entire place stunk. Now I stopped and thought about that for a minute. My gosh. I mean, is there anything worse than smells of dead fish? And the whole entire river was flooded with blood, and all the fish died, and they said it was just awful there. And what happened was there was so much blood everywhere that they had to dig big holes outside. They dug holes outside of the riverbank and brought the water up from the bottom of the ground, and actually so they could have something to drink, because not only did it fill all the water that was in the Nile, but it filled all the pails that they had in their house to drink. That water turned to blood also, it said. So what did Pharaoh do? Pharaoh said, I want you, he got all his magicians and his sorcerers together. He said, I want you to do that. I want you to fix this. I want you to show me that their God is not more powerful than the God that I'm worshiping. The magicians did that. They were able to do it again. They were able to show that they could do that also. I don't know how they did it, but they were able to convince Pharaoh that it was just something that they could do. So Pharaoh said, no, let your people go. Not going to do it. And so that went away after 7 days. The blood turned back. And then there was the plague of frogs. I'm a big frog lover. I like to eat frog legs. That's all they am. I think they're pretty good. But it flooded the place. These frogs flooded the place. I mean, they were everywhere. They were all over the temple. They were in the houses. He went to the magicians again. And the magicians were able to show how that took place, that they were able to do it because of the way that the river turned red, that the frogs came up on the ground. And that's the reason they were able to reproduce that. You know what I find interesting about that? This is how I know God was in control of that. You know, if I was Pharaoh now, I could think about the story, I would look at them and I would look at my magicians and I would say, hey, here's the deal. Just fix it. I mean, if it's something like that, just make it go up. Just make the blood go back to water. But he's not, I mean, they're not even smart enough to do that. Well, they just add to the problem. They make more blood. They just make more frogs. I couldn't figure that out. The next one went away, and that one went away. And then there was a plague of the gnats. I didn't really think gnats were that bad until I was introduced to buffalo gnats that bite you. Now I hate them. And there was a plague of the gnats. And he took dust from the ground and he threw it up in the air, and gnats were everywhere. The magicians couldn't do this again. He asked them to prove to him they couldn't do it. And the gnats got so bad that Pharaoh came to him and he said, Moses, take those away from us. Well, I'll turn them loose if you'll take those away. And he took them away, and he went back on his word and said, I'm not turning them loose. The next one was the plague of flies. Flies everywhere. Everywhere but where the Israelite people were. They wouldn't bother the Israelite people. They only bothered the people of Egypt. And they flooded the temple. More proof that God was in control. Pharaoh wouldn't listen. He asked him to take them away, and he did. He said, I'll turn your people loose. He said, I'll take it, you take them away. He took them away, and they went back on his word again and said, I turned you loose. So they put another one, the plague of the livestock. Egypt's livestock, all the sheep, the cattle, the horses, the camels, all the donkeys, all of them died. But guess what? The Israelite livestock stayed with them. Now I got news for that right there. After that happened, I'm done. The people didn't know. And I'm finished with that. I mean, if you're going to let all those livestock are all going to die, and yet the Israelite people who are pretty close to it won't live, hey, I'm turning the people loose. I'm done with the fight. Not fair. It's hard. Every time he did it, it's hard a little bit more. Plague of the boils. He threw soot up in the air, and the soot became on the people, and it made boils. Boils came on the people all over. He asked the magicians to come forward to show that they could do it also. The magicians came to him, and they were filled with boils themselves. They said, we want no part of this. The magicians want no part of this. He asked them to take it away. Pharaoh asked him to take it away. Moses took it away. Pharaoh changed his mind again. The plague of hail. It was the worst hailstorm that ever hit Egypt. He promised it would be that way. And then it hailed. I got news for you. You know, you can say what you want to, but I know this happened. The minute Moses said, look, it's going to hail where all you Israelite people are, but the Egyptians aren't going to suffer from this, after all this took place, if I'm an Israelite, I'm moving in with an Egyptian, I guarantee you. For sure. Too much had happened already. If you think that didn't happen, you're crazy. And you know that hadn't happened. And the hailstorm hit and destroyed everything. And anything that was left came upon the next plague. The next plague was the plague of locusts that came and it covered the ground, but it didn't cure the ground. They said, one person even said, some research they said that one person made it, that the ground looked like it moved. There were so many locusts on the ground. Wherever you were, the ground looked like it moved. And they took that away. And then there was the plague of darkness. It was dark for 3 solid days. 3 solid days, no light. But when you went into an Israelite village, the light shone. That's unbelievable. That went away. And finally it came to the plague of the unborn, which I'm going to talk to you about today. And that's what it comes down to. The plague of the unborn. Pharaoh had looked at it and he had backed out on every single thing that had happened. And finally Moses came to him and he said, this is the deal. We're done talking. Here's what's going to happen. Every Israelite, the family of the Israelites, the firstborn you have to understand was the pleasure one. He got twice of all of the inheritance of all the other children, and he was probably going to lead the household. He was going to be the leader of the household. He came to them and he said this, the angel of death is going to come upon this place, and he's going to kill all of the firstborn. Now here's what I want you to do, Moses. This is what God told him. I want you to go to your people and I want you to tell them this. And you better listen to me, Moses, because this is important. I want you to do this. I want you to tell them, and it's going to be expensive for them, Moses, but you listen to me. I want you to take a calf or a sheep, one that's unblemished, one that not have any blemish on it. It's got to be a perfect sheep. And I want you to, every family needs to get together and they need to kill that calf. And once they kill that sheep, they need to take that blood. If you don't have a sheep, you can use a goat, but it has to be unblemished. And he said, this is the deal, Moses. You tell them to take that blood, and you take some hyssop. And what hyssop is, it's a plant. And I want you to take that plant, and I want you to dip it down into this blood, and I want you to sprinkle it all upon your doorstep, all upon your doorways, on the sides and on the top. I want you to sprinkle that blood when it happens. And when you sprinkle that blood, what's going to happen here, Moses, is this, that the angel of death is going to come through that town. And the angel of death is going to swoop down upon that town. And when they see that blood on those doorsteps, or on those doorways, when they see it, the angel of death will pass over and will not kill the firstborn. But for anybody that doesn't have that blood, the angel of death will enter that home and he will kill the firstborn. And I don't care if it's the Pharaoh's firstborn. He will die just like the slave persons. If there's no blood, they will die. Now you do that, Moses. And you tell them what I said. Moses looked at me and he said, it's done. I'll tell them. Now I'm looking at you today and I'm telling you this. As I finish up, that's a little crazy. If I came to you today and I told you to do that, if that's what I came to you today, and I said, you need to do that today, your firstborn is going to die, how would you react to that? I mean, does that sound just a tad bit crazy? I mean, would you have me back again? I mean, seriously, you think about that. Would you do that? Would you go home and do that? Would you, if I told you that the Lord spoke to me last night and that's what happened, would you go home and do that? And I'm silent because I really want that to sink in. Because let me tell you something. That same story, it sounds a little bit crazy to the outside world. Coming in here and drinking some wine in remembrance of a man that suffered on a cross for us, and then taking a bread and understanding that that man died for your sins. That story sounds a little crazy to them. To some of you, I wonder how crazy it sounds. A lot of people want to be, this is what they want. This is what they want from life. They want, you got to give me more of an explanation of how I'm going to make it into heaven. I mean, tell me what I got to do. Tell me what committee that I need to work for. You tell me how much I need to write that check for and put in the offering plate. You tell me what I need to do for my neighbors. You tell me how nice I need to be. Just tell me something. Just tell me something that will get me into the gates of heaven. That's what I want. That's all I want. And I'm here to tell you something as I close. That 1,000 years ago, the only way was the way of a blood-stained doorway. 1,000 years ago in Egypt, that was the only way. And today, in Linton, Indiana, the only way you get into heaven is through the blood-stained cross. That's it. That's the only way. That's the only way. And when I get to heaven, and I'm going, I can tell you this. There will be those pictures, I believe, that will hang on a wall somewhere. Maybe they'll be painted. When I get there, when I'm done talking to all the people that I have to talk to, I'm going to go try to find my picture. And maybe it'll have all those circles that are around me in the center as an old man, if I make it be an old man. Maybe there'll be different pictures there that I can look at and remember back at. But I can assure you one thing, my picture is not going to be a very big one. It's not going to have a great big light over it. It's just going to be a small picture. Some of you may be sitting there today saying, yeah, but you don't understand. I doubt everything that goes on with what you say, Darrell. I just doubt it. I have my doubts inside me, and I want to tell you something. They'll point you in the direction of Doubting Thomas, and you'll be down that hallway. Your picture will be down that hallway, because he was down there too. Some of you may say, well, I can't get along with my in-laws. And they'll show you the way to Jacob's corner. And your picture will be over there. I won't have a very big picture. That's okay with me. As long as my picture's there. Pray with me. Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for Sundays. I thank you for, I really thank you for the Bible that you've given us, for great stories. Man, great stories. How they're still relevant today. I thank you for your words. I thank you for this church. I thank you for all these people that are here. Help them, Father, to realize there is only one way to heaven. There's only one way to true peace, the peace that passes all understanding. All of that. But we don't need to be tossing and turning in our beds. As long as we've turned our life over to Christ, and God is number one in our life, you'll find that peace. And peace will come knowing that we're all going to celebrate in heaven one day. Be with everyone as they go about their Sunday and throughout their week, Father. Help them to be a light to others. In your holy and precious name, amen.